This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last week, it was a short track with twisty bits. This week, it's a short track with long straights. And while most race fans think of the sock-shaped layout when we mention Monza, they might be in for a bit of a surprise. Monza's lesser-used junior circuit hosts these lower-powered cars and offers up one of the simplest layouts of the season. We'll see if that simplicity catches anyone out, though, as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Weekend Warriors. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, it's only counted as 4 corners, so at least there's not much to memorize this week.
Well, Joe, that might be true. I have to say, though, I always feel like the Monza Junior Circuit is Europe's answer to American Open. Being introduced as a possible layout in 1959, it features 2 long straights connected on one end by the famous parabolic curve and at the other end by 2 right-handers. And technically there's also a left-hander in it. White on black, it looks like an easy track. But that shortcut is quite a challenge. An incredibly 8 car widths wide entry narrows down to just 2 car widths. Plus you have the parabolica, which you have to challenge through with momentum versus handling. One thing these guys don't have to fear is the incredibly tight and tricky chicane out of said parabolica that once used to be a thing on this layout. But to perfectly show the challenges this layout really brings with it, let's take you on board a lap on GSRC Lap Guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Monza. Down into turn 1, you're likely to see a lot of pass attempts because of it being a long straight down into a hard braking zone. However, watch out for cars who either spin or wind up overshooting themselves and slam into the Armco. It's very narrow through here, so any sort of accident can potentially cause a track blockage. Try to keep to the left, turn in, and don't let the car get unsettled by the bump at the apex. It's hugely important that you get on the power as soon as you know you're good. The SRF loves to understeer on throttle, so the temptation may cause you to either drift into the grass or be forced to lift. At this point, the draft picks up down the backstretch. And while you might consider trying an overtake into the parabolica, there's surprisingly little braking into this hairpin. What's most important here is the same as turn 3. Focus on a good corner exit. How well you do on these 2 turns will make or break your race. Don't bother swinging all the way out because there's actually more time to be found cutting back to the inside to shorten your run. Back on the front stretch, it turns into a chess game with everyone jockeying for position in the draft. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Monza. You see the sub 1 minute lap that you can do around this junior course, so it's very simple and it's very fast in these Spec Racer Fords. And the Spec Racer Fords are brought to you each weekend by the Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find more about them at simstickers.co.uk. Big thanks for helping bring the Weekend Warriors to air this season. Also, attention all iRacers, we found a way to get you all on the same boat. Take a cruise with us to celebrate the new year. That's right. Sail out of Miami with us on January 5th, 2020 for a 7-night Eastern Caribbean cruise on the Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Seas. Special group pricing has been put in place for iRacing members and their friends. Sail away and get together with members of the iRacing community and get ready to see Phillipsburg, St. Martin, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Labadee, Haiti. For as little as $125 a day, you can cruise the high seas for 7 days. And for a small deposit, you can secure your spot today. Payment plans available for everyone. Contact Brenna at brenna@thecruiseshopfw.com to get in on this special offer. Email or call, but do it now. Spots are filling quickly. Go on over to their Facebook events page at Facebook/cruiseshopfw, where you can find all the details about this amazing offer. We'll see you on the ship. Looking at the times that are coming in, we've got a few familiar faces up at the top, but the draft allowing a few drivers to come on in unexpectedly. But we'll get more to that a little bit later as we get deeper into our coverage of qualifying. Before that, let's go towards the points. Of course, starting with the Spec 1 Championship. Now, they're a little bit different from what you'd expect because we do have bonus points to consider. Both Halliburton and Sadro managed to get some. Now, Gaspers finished second on track, but you see he's third here in the points. Well, he got 3 penalty points, assumingly due to the incident points that you can rack up and accrue penalty points there. We'll go over that in a second. Elson and Cofford round out the top 5, although we'll get to Cofford in a second as we go to the Spec 2 Championship. Stefan, how are those sitting?
Well, we have got set Alex Cofford in first place here with 77 points to his name. Ed Doherty, second place, the UK driver, just 2 points behind. Dustin Decker, another United States driver, 10 points behind. Jim McGill, he is 11 points behind, so just 1 point there between third and fourth. And then we have Ian Haycox, a very familiar face here in iRacing, and GSRC, 13 points behind your leader of Alex Cofford.
So only one race in. This could still yet change around. Let's talk about this race 2 and what you've got in store. They're going to have 3 drop rounds this season, and they have an open setup on this car. Now, from what I'm told by some of the faster drivers, you can still actually find a little bit of time around this track with the setup. I assume with it being a bit of a weird layout that maybe you can get an asymmetric setup on the car to find a little bit of pace. Now, they will have a pit stop in this series because, as you can see, they've limited the fuel. So despite it being only 40 minutes, they will have to come in and take fuel. There you see the penalty points that you can get. For every 10 incidents, you lose points. So Gaspers must have had more than 10 last time. They also have a spare car, which might come in handy because, well, there's one particularly dangerous part of this track that we might see a lot of drivers get some damage. And hopefully that won't happen, but we'll go over it in a bit. One more mention that, as always, the Weekend Warriors is on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and head over to their YouTube page, click on the big red button that says subscribe, and get all of the Weekend Warriors events in your YouTube feed. Looking down at the qualifying, Ian Haycox is up at the top of the charts. Not an expected name. David Gaspers is next to him. I get the feeling, Steph, that a few drivers are using that draft to their advantage around here.
Joe, I don't mind to see Ian Haycox up in front because an old foe in the Lotus 49 of mine, I like to see him being fast. And he is exactly that as we follow David Gaspers here. He was followed by Daniel Sadro himself sitting in 6th place.
Now, I talked a little bit earlier about there's a potential place where you could get some damage. Obviously, you can hit the walls or other cars just about anywhere on this track, but you mentioned the turns 1 through 3 where it gets incredibly narrow. Those walls are right by the side. I don't know about you, but I feel like a track blockage is a serious concern here today.
Oh, I've seen that already once when the Grand Touring Cup here was about 2 years ago, which that track blockage actually lasted a full lap. So it can happen. It is a big possibility, especially on in this left-hander that we have here, the only left-hander, because that is actually the narrowest part in this section. But where we might see the most problems is out of turn 1, because these cars will drift all the way to the outside, all the way to the wide line, and possibly also hit that grass, and thus create a little bit of spillage of adrenaline on that corner.
As we ride on board with our pole sitter, he's continuing to try and improve on this 59 flat. Excuse me, this is Bradshaw that we're on. Ian Haycox had set the fastest lap, but Bradshaw, who currently rides in that Spec 2 championship, manages to get himself into P19. He's got a ways to go to climb up the order.
Yeah, easy to confuse the two green cars of Haycox and Bradshaw.
Yep, now we see Haycox up front there and on screen. Now he's got quite a bit of time to worry about that Gaspers could come back out because he's just ducked into the pits, and Gaspers could take that pole position away. He's only got 5/100ths of a second, half a tenth, to try and get past Ian Haycox. But the temperature has been steadily moving upwards. It especially jumped when we switched over here to qualifying. These are slippery conditions, Steph.
Yeah, a full 52 degrees Celsius or 125 degrees Fahrenheit. It is smoking hot, I'll tell you that. At temperature 84 degrees Celsius, as Edward Doherty just put in a new fastest lap in his car. Also, the winds is a little bit a force to reckon with 8 kilometers an hour. That might play a little bit of play into the Parabolica.
Yeah, hopefully it won't catch too many drivers out as we watch Chris Murakami down in 10th position, one of our Spec 1 racers. In fact, Spec 2 currently holds the front row, we should point out, with the top 5 having 3 of them being Spec 2. Doherty, Haycox, and Jacobson. Gaspers and Kobayashi are our other 2 racers there in the top 5, both running in Spec 1. This is going to be a jumbled up field in terms of points. This may be an odd track, but it has given us some unusual things happening. Chris Murakami coming across for yet another lap. Let's see what this one holds. Not any faster, unfortunately. Wonder if those first laps are going to be the best people can hope for with the temperatures continuing to climb.
Well, as I said earlier, Doherty, while we were on that temperature gauge or looking at it, he did put in a new fastest lap, so it is still possible for these guys to put in new fastest laps, but they have to be able to get every single turn completely correct and to be able to have that perfect draft.
So will this wind up putting some of those unfamiliar faces at the top at the end of the race? We'll see, because strategy always tends to come into play, and some of the cooler heads seem to prevail in these hot conditions, knowing how to use that strategy to their advantage. The other thing that we haven't talked about yet is lap traffic around here. We've got a fairly decent sized field, around a sub 1 minute lap, only 1.5 miles. Even though it's mostly straightaway, like we said, it's got a narrow part. I mean, is anybody going to possibly cause a headache for our leaders?
I mean, right now the times are within about a second, 1.7 seconds. So that is still roughly about 50 laps on a perfect laps consistency that they would run into traffic. So that is pretty much out of reach in a 40-minute race. But strategy and pitting and stuff like that, and obviously mayhems and hiccups and stuff like that, we might see some traffic evolve over the race, but either it is going to be very little and they're only going to be able to catch them on the straights, or it's going to be massive because of hopefully not a big wreck at the start.
That's a good point. Yeah, that wreck could certainly play a part in things. We're riding on board with Gasper, still trying to get himself onto the front row, let alone the pole, himself dealing with traffic. That's Sadro and Decker that he just went by. I'm not sure if that compromised his lap, but he will have enough time to do one more after this. He sits at a 59.1 compared to our pole sitter's 59 flat. Just a little less than a tenth off of him.
And it seems like Ian Haycox will not be able to respond as he's still sitting in pit lane, so he thinks that he has put in everything he got.
There is Aaron Kobayashi. I'm pretty sure that's a new name as well in this series. Don't recall seeing Aaron driving last week. Wondering if this is pace that he can keep up week in and week out. Jeff Jacobson as well, the Midwest driver, coming onto the back stretch to complete his last lap. David Gaspers just crossed the line for his final attempt as that clock continues to tick down. 20 seconds left. Everybody coming across the line, starting that final go. Oh, and Gaspers with an off track. That definitely won't count. So third is the best we're going to see out of him. First drivers to cross the line and get the checkered flag includes Sven Demmel, who's unusually far down in 8th, and qualifying is make that third, though. His most recent lap, a tick faster, gets him onto row 2 and overtakes Gaspers.
Yeah, which means we have the top 5 drivers within 0.05 seconds. So yeah, these guys really putting on a show in qualifying.
See if anybody else is going to try and complete their laps. I'm seeing a number of drivers look like they're heading into the pits, unfortunately. Zach LeVay, one of them. He doesn't think he can go any faster. Bob Kern's going to give a try. Or is he?
He is.
Sometimes it can be hard to tell. Yep, yeah, he's going to stay out. Let's see if he can beat this 59.7. No, he cannot. He's 0.2 slow, unfortunately. Adam Bradshaw all the way down to 19th. He crosses the line, but it is not faster for Adam Bradshaw. And I believe that's everybody at this point. I do not see any other cars that are able to complete a lap because they've all crossed it after the checkered flag. Murakami, I'm pretty sure.
About Murakami?
Yep, he's already crossed. Yeah, it's been a minute since that checkered flag has come out, so he's just warming up. In the meantime, let's go through your starting grid here today. Edward Doherty puts it on the pole with Ian Haycox, his fellow Spec 2 driver, completing that front row. Could we see a Spec 2 complete podium? That would be interesting. Sven Demmel manages to start third. He's won plenty of races. He could do it again. David Gaspers the same. He'll start fourth. Aaron Kobayashi will be P5 at the drop of the green, with Jeff Jacobson starting in 6th. Daniel Sadro 7th, and then Dominique Bureau in 8th. Next row is going to be Steve Elson 9th, and completed by Chris Murakami in 10th. Steph?
Alex Crawford, the Spec 2 leader after first race, down in 11th place. Alongside him will be Ryan Walker. Francois van Doornveld in 13th. Gary McGreevy, he lines up in 14th. Stevie Ray, the league organizer, down in 15th. Alongside him will be the green and black car of Michael Shaw. John P. O'Donnell in 17th. Alongside him, the 223 of Zachary LeVay. 19th and 20th go to Adam Bradshaw and Bob Kern.
Nico Schuch will be 21st, followed by Todd Hansen. Then it's Dustin Decker in 23rd. P24 goes to Gary Wobolt. Aaron Vigli starts in the 25th position. On the outside of him will be Wayne Palmer. Julio Forcolin will be starting 27th. And then from there, you get drivers that did not get a lap time in. Not sure that they're going to be here today. James McRitchie does not look to be in the server. Christopher Patterson has lined up, and William Marshall has as well. So I think we're going to be seeing a 28-car field as the pace car now takes off to lead them around the pace lap. This will give us a good idea of just how narrow it is through here. It's not just the width of the track itself, but you can see those Armco barriers offer no place to hide. You can maybe get a car off the track and fit it onto the grass if you need. You'll definitely need to take a tow if you can't drive it straight, though, through there. And then on to the backstretch, heading under the bridge. Drivers start to pick up speed before they plunge into Parabolica. Try to wheel it around that long right-hander back onto the front straight and complete a lap with only 4 corners and essentially 2 braking events. It depends on how you take turn 3, I suppose, Steph.
Yeah, it does. Normally you would have to brake a little bit if your setup isn't correct. One thing you really have to be careful is that turn 1, 2 through 3 is technically just a one-line track. So we might see someone being very eager and try to pass, but I very much doubt it.
Let's find out here as we get ready to go racing for 40 minutes for round 2 of the Weekend Warriors. The Porsche pace car peels off into the pit entry. Control given to Edward Doherty. He waits patiently. Now he accelerates away. Green flag is out here in Monza. All the cars now building up speed down the long front stretch. And already Sven Dimmel slots into second place. Gaspers follows him into third. Ian Haycox with a horrible start. They break for the first turn for the first time, almost going 3 wide. Dimmel challenging for the lead, but has to give it up. Checking to see if anybody has any problems. So far, so good.
So far, so good indeed, but Ian Haycox with a terrible, terrible start. Losing 2 positions, just completely fell asleep at that start.
Oh, and it was exit of turn 3 that's caused the problem. Drivers having to thread the needle through all the chaos. A few drivers off. I think we've got the replay on how this started. I didn't even see who first caused it.
Seems like the incident evolved between Francois von Dornewald, who got hit in the back by Michael Shaw, just 2 lines crossing each other. Seems like Michael Shaw did overcook the turn ever so slightly, and Francois von Dornewald sadly was right there.
Poor John P. O'Donnell was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Didn't see it on there, but he was one of the drivers that first came up to it, had no idea a wreck was happening to his left, and just was plowed straight into the Armco. So plenty of drivers taking an early stop, but unfortunately they're going to have to come back in again because this is just to take their spare car. Meanwhile, at the top, you can see Gaspers is leading. It's starting to stretch away from Doherty, who holds down second, and then we got a side-by-side battle for third between Dimmel and Haycox. Haycox to the inside in the green.
Well, not gonna lie, I hoped a little bit that Gaspers will be able to not be that fast up to the front, but yeah, blistering start by him from 4th all the way up to 1st already, and Doherty and Ian Haycox side by side out of parabolic.
Look at that shove from Dimmel. He's saying, let's go, giving a bump draft to Ian Haycox there in front of him. Haycox going to duck off to the left side. I think maybe he's got the right idea. Dimmel's probably going to be pretty fast compared to them. And I thought he was going to overtake into turn 1, but as they slot down single file, it goes Haycox, Dimmel, Doherty.
Yeah, Haycox seems to be very good on the brakes here in the early laps, as we are now already on lap 3, and the first traffic is coming up as John P. O'Donnell, not too far ahead of David Gaspers anymore.
I think these are the drivers that we saw duck in to try and take that spare car. Ride on board with Edward Doherty there for a second as we now jump back behind them, because this train continues on until you get a little break to the number 208 there. That is Dominique Bureau in 9th, being chased by Jacobson, Walker, Murakami, Ray, and McAreevy.
Ian Haycox now getting overtaken by Sven Dimmel down the main straight. Same with, or at least he tried a Kobayashi on Doherty, but has to stick in, or does he? What a near dive bomb by Steven Elson there too, as he nearly went 3 wide with Kobayashi and Doherty.
Yeah, it looks like the accordion is out, and unfortunately some drivers having to adjust as they all come together into that first corner. So far, it hasn't caused too many bad dramas. They return once again to Parabolica. Now that Dimmel has gone by and he's got free track, I'm curious to see if he can start to gain on Gaspers. And is Ian Haycox going to battle him, or is he just going to let him through and follow his coattails up the front?
Well, last lap, even though Ian Haycox got overtaken, he was faster than your leader. Obviously not now. But David Gaspers, he might be in front, but he's not the fastest car in this field right now, as in behind we have an overtake between Kobayashi and Doherty.
And almost on Haycox too. It was 3 wide for a split second there. If they keep fighting like that, they are certainly going to lose track of Dimmel and Gaspers. On board with Doherty once again. He's got Steve Elson close behind, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Steve make a go into Parabolica. There you can see the 56. Nope, he's going to work together with him. He gives him a bump draft, tries to get him farther up.
By the way, your biggest mover in the field right now, sorry, in the top 10 of your field right now is Alex Crawford, your Spec 2 leader of the championship right now. He started in 11th, already up to 7th place, and he's right on the back of this long train for your 3rd position.
And he just set the fastest lap of the race on top of it.
Oh,
you know that Alex Crawford can be pretty quick usually.
There.
Oof, yeah, they keep trying that side-by-side move into that narrow portion of the circuit. I feel like at some point it's going to bite somebody. On the back stretch as we ride on board with, I believe that was Crawford. In the meantime, gaining on Doherty, looking to the inside. Ian Haycox doesn't want to sit around in 5th place. He's trying to move back up into 4th, but he understeers wide, nearly shoves Edward Doherty off the track. Behind them, Steve Elson gets a little bit of a run, but he's going to choose the outside car to go with. And in fact, he's going to try and pass. No, he has to lift big time on the straight. All that momentum interrupted. Alex Crawford sees it happening. He backs it up early.
And our leaders have caught the first traffic of Giulio Forsolin and John P. O'Donnell. That's 25th and 26th on the track, with just a few car lengths ahead of Dave Gaspers.
See if this starts to cause trouble. It only took a matter of 7 minutes for them to catch the back of the field here. David Gaspers clearly has a big pace advantage on these drivers, but I imagine it's mostly going to be in the turns. Will the draft be enough to allow him to get by? Giulio is focused ahead on John P. O'Donnell because that is a battle for position. Does he want to give up enough time to let the leader through?
Sorry, in behind, the fight between Edward Doherty and Ian Haycox has started to be a gloves-off fight as Stephen Elson now dive bombs Ian Haycox, or sorry, nearly dive bombs Edward Doherty. But yeah, these 3 guys are fighting most definitely with the gloves off.
The more they fight, the more they're going to lose on our leaders. They've already lost nearly a second on Sven Demmel. And Demmel is 1.2 back from David Gaspers. You could see both of them, the 23 and the 22, ducking to the inside to lap cars down the back stretch. Kobayashi is going to have to follow them through on the front stretch to see if he can regain that ground. So far, Demmel has not been able to run down David Gaspers, but that was in clean air. Maybe things will change now that the face of this race has changed with the lap traffic coming into play. Oh, and there's a car spinning in front of the leaders. That is John O'Donnell. He lets it drift to the outside. Probably a smart move as he tries to come across the track, just gets there in time. Whew. He picked that hole perfectly. That slots him all the way down to 26 after that incident. See the 294 to the inside, going by more of the traffic. They're practically shoving Forcolin out of the way. He actually goes off track to let them all through. They are in a hurry.
Battle for 4th position, nearly going 3 wide. Actually, Ian Haycox tries to take it 3 wide. They are now 3 wide. Ian Haycox on the inside, the other 2 cars getting closer and closer together. Who breaks later? It's Stephen Elson. Will he be able to keep the momentum? No, that's a big no. Doherty and Haycox fight it out side by side, still through turn 2 to go. And now Doherty defends of his 4th position.
Oof, these guys are racing brave. Doherty is the one that comes out ahead due to it. But it continues to lose them plenty of time. They're managing to get sub-1 minute lap times still, even with this side-by-side fighting, as Elson now looks to move to the front of the group. Shoots way far ahead. Does he make the corner, though? He drifts out a little bit on the exit. Doherty sees it, comes back to the inside. Edward going to retake the front spot.
And up in front of them, Aaron Kobayashi now takes it too wide with Sven Demmel. For that second place, Sven Demmel lets him by, but these guys once again 3 wide down the straight. Doherty and Elson actually had a little bit of a touch there.
Haycox to the inside of Doherty. Doherty tries to hold on around the outside. This is actually going to switch back in his favor in the left-hander, but then it comes back to turn 3, and he's fully ahead this time, single file, as they somehow come out the other side, and almost Elson drifting into the right-hand side of Ian Haycox on corner exit. My, woof, look at the moves they're pulling here.
That was a little bit of an accidental block there on Daniel Sadler by Ian Haycox. Meanwhile, Steve Elson once again passed Doherty and Alex Crawford from 8th up to 6th place.
Everybody's so focused on what they're doing in the car ahead, they're not necessarily watching what's going on behind. Another run down the front stretch as the 294 of Doherty gets up behind, looks for a bump draft. And while those three work in a train, Ian Haycock says, all right, I'll just go it alone, go around the outside and see if I can take the spot, but he outbrakes himself and he's into the grass.
I thought he's gonna go straight into the Armco Barrett there.
Nice recovery. Behind them, we got some side-by-side action between Bureau and Murakami, and I think Murakami is going to get the better of that to move himself into the top 10. Look at the chaos this is erupting once again with more 3 wide.
Do the Hakkinen McAreevy thinks and tries to do it on the inside, but the momentum goes away from him, is able to outbrake everyone else though. Yes, no he isn't. Momentum might swing back to the number 4 machine of Walker. No it's not. So McAreevy there does the Hakkinen, goes around the inside, overtakes 2 guys.
Nicely done, especially by Walker, to be aware that he's got those 2 cars to the inside. This is frantic stuff. We're not even halfway through this race as this group comes up to the first corner once again. They're going to have to get this settled out eventually. McAreevy gets to the apex first. Walker tries to get there, but Bureau was in his space. Eventually, Bureau loses out and falls back to 13th. Oh, but Murakami into the wall. Murakami brushing the left side against the tires out of turn 3. Watch from on board.
As one would say, that got a little bit awkward there for Chris Murakami.
He only lightly touched it. He may have gotten away with that. Not sure if he got damage from it.
Just a little bit too much speed into the turn, picks up the throttle and just understeer plows off the track and ever so slightly brushes that tire wall. So yeah, seems like that awkward moment for Murakami had a good ending to it.
And while this has been going on, as we switch back up to second place, it seems like Demmel and Kobayashi have been working together a little bit. Now, I'm not saying it's effective, but it looks like every time they go down the front stretch, they kind of swap places to gain a little bit of extra speed and then let whoever is to the inside take the corner. I get a good view of it right here as Kobayashi comes off of Parabolica.
And just real quick, one thing we have missed in all this chaos, Daniel Sadro, he got plowed into by Ian Haycox about a lap ago into turn 1 and now carries a major rear end damage.
And we've got our first pitter. Take a guess who it is. It's Stevie Ray once again. Seeing if he could go to the end from here.
So with that, the pit window is officially open. Always nice to have someone like Stevie Ray who always pits on the first possible lap.
Can't say he can really fool anybody with his pit strategy, though. It's kind of you kind of know what to expect with him. So we switch back up to Elson running in 4th place behind the podium, who have really pulled away from these battling quartet now that we've lost a couple of drivers in the form of Ian Haycox and Daniel Sadro. Well, no, I guess we haven't lost Sadro. He's still in there.
Yeah, Sadro is still there. Oh, someone is taking to the pits. That is Steve Nelson.
Interesting. So Elson also going for an early strategy. I wonder if Sadro isn't aware of the damage he's got on the back of the car.
Well, either not aware or doesn't care, because it seems like he's easily able to keep up with the pack. Instead, on the other hand, Ian Haycox, with his front end damage, he is struggling to keep up with that now pack of 3.
He certainly is. He's dropped off by more than half a second to Alex Cofford. There you can see Cofford in the blue and yellow at the tail of this trio. Looks like Sadro is going to duck to the inside of Doherty. And, you know, I'm surprised we aren't seeing a few more early pitters because, well, yes, it will send you back in the field. We saw traffic get caught by the leaders very early. So one way or the other, you're going to have to pass cars.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it loses you a bit more than half a lap here to take your pit stop. So, like Steven Elson, he was lucky to get up in front of the pack that is for 19th place. So, yeah, Steven Elson, if you're like your leaders, you will be able to get out in clear traffic, but that is an uncertain thing that you just don't have the information in the car.
Very true. Elson right now running in P18. Meanwhile, we've jumped back to Murakami in this group once again. That's McAreevy you see in the green and white down to the inside. Ryan Walker in the blue machine comes back to the racing line with him. And they are going to be followed through by Jeff Jacobson in the black and white on the inside of Murakami.
McAreevy.
McAreevy finds a new line through this corner, and I don't think it's faster.
Welcome to the new Spec Racer Ford Rallycross Championship here on Global Sim Racing Channel. Your defending champion, Gary McAreevy, perfectly shows how to do it.
Unfortunately, that not only loses him all 3 of those positions, but he loses the draft as well because he's about 2 seconds behind because of swinging wide like that. So the front of it is now Ryan Walker with Murakami in 9th and Jeff Jacobson in 10th. Still haven't seen any other major drivers pitting. See that Adam Bradshaw and Dustin Decker have also come in. And honestly, actually, they're ahead of Stevie Ray. So that's 4 cars who have taken their scheduled stops. There's Bradshaw running now in 19th. And that's actually Decker right behind him in the red and white. They're followed by Stevie Ray, who's completed his stop. Oh, and we got another front runner in. This is Doherty. The 294 looks for his stall just about at the halfway point.
Still looking for a stall. Now he finds it, the very last stall, obviously, as he did put in the pole lap in qualifying. So Doherty, he is stationary. Where is Steven Elson? As Doherty is already off. Steven Elson just now over the start-finish line, so that might actually get close between the two. And sure enough, Steven Elson. Yep.
He's by. Doherty slots in behind. Elson actually very hot into the corner with his rival coming out of the pits, maybe distracted him slightly. But Doherty returns to the circuit with about just shy of a second gap between he and Elson. Elson is still your highest pitter. Oh, and what happened to Stevie here? Let me see if I can find where he made contact. Oh, you know what? He didn't make contact with another car. He made contact with the wall just this lap into turn 1.
Yeah, it seems like he did overcook it, and the bumps into turn one, which are quite heavy in this car, just caught him out, sent him wide. He tried to recover it, but that street racing feel into turn one just caught him out.
You watch it from on board. The rear starts to go, and he's trying to catch it, and there's no runoff. And unfortunately, as we come back live, he is already taken to the pits to take a spare car. It must have done enough damage that he cannot keep pace up. Or maybe he already used a spare car, because I'm seeing it not pop back into place. Well, this is absolutely crushing for the number 11.
Or maybe he did something that I once accidentally did and forgot to turn on the fast repair.
Yes, that can happen as well. We have seen that go down here. As we switch back to second place, Sven Demmel has not pitted yet, but continues to lose ground on David Gaspers, not by huge chunks. It is only 3 seconds between himself and the number 23, and he's carrying along Aaron Kobayashi. Always so hard to tell if drivers are going to pit in these cars, because the racing line takes you so far to the inside on the exit of that corner. Kobayashi going to swing back through. They're trying to make this teamwork make something, but just does not seem to be getting them enough.
Teamwork makes the dream work, but yeah, as I said, it seems like that David Gaspers just is too strong and just ghosts away.
A little bit of a swapping of positions back amongst Jacobson, Murakami, and Walker yet again. They've been quite a bit of action back there in P7, or what is now the battle for P7. These three have not yet pitted. Going to get a bump draft from Chris Murakami down the backstretch, past the stands, and into the parabolica before he backs off to make sure he doesn't shove Jacobson off the road. And fan out as they work their way around the parabolica. Each of them with a slightly different line. Jacobson having to stay to the outside now that Murakami passes him, but Walker going to be the first of that group to come in, and he's joined by McAreevy.
Up ahead, Daniel Sato just overtook Ian Haycox into turn one. Jeff Jacobson looked to do the same, but decided otherwise and stays behind Chris Murakami in P8.
Haycox is not doing too bad, considering he's been dealing with the damage, and he started on the front row. Now, granted, some of the cars in front of him have pitted. He is currently in 4th place, but I think he'll still be looking at a top 10. I question whether or not we would be getting a Spec 2 driver or a Spec 2 full podium, and I don't think it's going to be likely today, but Ian Haycox is still keeping it within a top 10, it seems. He is winning our Spec 2 race for the moment. We're right on board with the car ahead of him, Daniel Sadro.
It just shows that Spec 2 drivers, they can be there on one lap, but it seems like over a full race.
And Ian Haycox, what happened here? Missed his braking point?
Seems like Ian Haycox wanted to do the full version once, but no, in all reality, it seems like he ever so slightly did touch the grass. No, he didn't.
Yeah, I think he just outbraked himself.
Yeah. Trying to see if he did that. He just did brake way too late there. He just forgot to brake.
To be fair to him, I did that once in one of my races this week. I was 3 wide coming into the first corner and was so focused on the 3 wide moment that I forgot to look for my brake marker. So just had to spin the car and get it going once again. Hopefully he can remember where it is this time, because he's going to go side by side with Chris Murakami. Chris is going to back off and slot back into line as yet more cars come off of pit lane off to their right. Ian Haycox now up to 6th position.
And the thing with this mistake of Ian Haycox is that he is now within the drivers that did not pit yet, or that did already pit, but he is yet to pit, so yeah, tough break for Ian Haycox.
15 minutes left to go, and we're still waiting for a number of drivers to pit. Our top 11 have yet to take a stop. Watching from back of Ian Haycox, looking at Chris Murakami. These two both have not pitted. And then third in the train is Jeff Jacobson. Murakami going to return the favor on Ian as he now goes to the inside and is fully passed. What about Jacobson, though? Jacobson wants to get into the mix. He gets to the inside of Ian Haycox, down to the apex, turns it in time, finds the grip, and the 240 now shifts up to P7. Keep kind of watching these top drivers to see when they come in, because we're starting to get to the end of that pit window. So far, nothing for Gaspers and nothing for Demmel and Kobayashi.
Yeah, everyone seems to try to make this tank last as long as possible, just trying to avoid the other traffic and seeing what they can do with that lighter fuel, as Ian Haycox gets overtaken by Jeff Jacobson. And I have to say a little bit of a sorry to Ian Haycox. He obviously is still in 7th place, so he is still within the drivers that didn't pit yet, but obviously lost a lot of time there to his competitors.
Yeah, all this messing around and fighting is not helping him, and so is going completely off course. He tries to catch the car. It spins around, and Ian Haycox loses more position with his second major mistake of the race.
And actually also backs it into the wall, so he has now also some slight rear damage to his car, as we take you on board on that replay to exactly show you what happened.
Just wide into that corner, and then kept trying to save it, but there is no saving it from that point. I can report that David Gaspers has pitted. Sadro's going to follow him in. Demmel stays out. Kobayashi stays out. Cawford as well goes for one more lap. But many of our drivers are now in. Murakami as well. Jeff Jacobson, Ian Haycox. 12 minutes and 40 seconds to go. And we're now down to 5 drivers who have not taken a scheduled stop. This is your leader right now, Sven Demmel. He comes across to the right side, and Demmel's pitting. Kind of checking to see, too, if anybody's managed to get a speeding penalty on entry. You do come in there pretty hot. So here comes the driver who's led most of this race. We ride on board with the number 23 of David Gaspers. He obviously done with his pit stop. Should not be jumped, we don't think, by Demmel or Kobayashi, because they were about 5 seconds behind during their pit stops, and indeed he breezes on through.
Now, please do correct me, but that was a very slow pit for Aaron Kobayashi there.
Yes, it was. Incredibly slow, honestly. But not for what seems to be a penalty, as he's coming out just as Bob Kern, a lapped car, has to go around the outside, and Daniel Sadro, who is for position, catches up behind him. And Sadro is bringing along friends. Oh, and behind them, a number of people getting very rude with Bob Kern.
Yeah, Steve Elson and Bob Kern made slight door-to-door contact, which made Bob Kern jump on his brake, and Adam Bradshaw, nowhere to go, slams into the rear of him, as we show you that once again on the onboard of Steve Elson. There's the door slam, and there was the contact.
Thankfully, everybody's able to keep going. It certainly caused a little bit of concern for Bob Kern, who's racing with Adam Bradshaw as we watch this battle for what is now fourth place. Kobayashi, Sadro, Doherty, and Elson. The good news is, Steph, is that the track has cooled down to a very chilly 117 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's perfect weather now. 47 degrees Celsius on the track, 29 degrees Celsius in the air, so that stayed the same.
Oh.
But that track temperature is better for these cars.
Oh, excuse me. I thought Cofford was coming in for a second stop. This is just Cofford coming in for his scheduled stop. Thought maybe he sped on the way out. So this will now finally hand the lead back to David Gaspers for sure. With 10 minutes left to go, we jump back to Kobayashi, trying to pull a little bit of a draft from Aaron Vegley. Aaron just going to stay off to the right politely, letting them lap him.
Interestingly enough, even though Cofford was able to stretch his tank so much further than anyone else, he did not gain any track position.
Oh. Sorry, Aaron was a little bit in the way of Daniel Sadro. That checked him up and now almost spinning out. Doherty gets caught up behind it. It is a chain reaction, and eventually it stops with Doherty and Elson, who race side by side. That very nearly went south in a hurry. I think it looks like Doherty's going to manage to take the 5th position. But Sadro, I think, almost came up and shoved Aaron as he tried to let the group through the narrow corners of 1, 2, and 3. A little bit of a bump draft from Elson to bring Doherty back up to Daniel Sadro. This time, everybody staying single file through this portion of the circuit.
This is now a very interesting train constellation because on the top we have Sadro, Doherty, Elson, and Cofford 4P4, and then right behind them we have Fergele, Kern, and Bradshaw 4P20. So yeah, out of 2 battles we suddenly have one big gaggle of cars.
And in that group that you were mentioning, the group on the lead lap, you've got the battle for the Spec 2 lead. Doherty currently holds it in 5th position overall. Alex Cofford is split between them by Steve Elson in 6th. So Cofford in 7th. You're going to make that 2 cars, potentially, maybe, as we go 3 wide down into turn 1. Once again, Elson to the inside of Sadro, who says, screw this, and backs off, lets the 2 of them settle that one out. Doherty stays where he is in 5th.
And the very interesting thing, not only because, but also Aaron Kobayashi is able to breeze away from this battle for P4 now already over a full second ahead of this battle pack.
But to tell you the pace that the top 2 are going at, Kobayashi is a whole 12 seconds behind Sven Demel. Now, some of that has been added to by his, what we estimate about a 7-second long pit stop, Kobayashi. We do think that Aaron is a newcomer, and I know some drivers were talking pit strategy with him before the race. I'm wondering if Aaron needs to take a few more notes, because maybe he just took too much fuel.
In total, his pit lane transition was 10 seconds slower than the one of Sven Demel, and he was only a full second behind Sven Demel going into the pit lane. So yeah, Aaron Kobayashi showing that he is still a rookie in this car.
Usually you don't have to make pit stops in the Spec Racer, both in real life and in the official series on iRacing. They do it a little bit special here, so you may not be used to having to calculate that. We ride on board with Sadro, who closed on Doherty but then decided to back out. A little less than 6 minutes left to go on the clock in this 40-minute race. You're watching round 2 of the Weekend Warriors, and this is the battle for P4. No, it says battle for third. Kobayashi. Oh, actually it is now the battle for third because, wow, Elson deep on the brakes has re-caught Aaron Kobayashi.
Yeah, I have to say I'm sort of surprised about the drop-off on pace of Aaron Kobayashi. Compared to the laps he did before the pit stop, he is now a full 3 to 4 tenths slower than what he did before his pit stop.
Down the backstretch into the Parabolica. Elson just going to sit back behind Aaron this time. So it is now a 5-car fight to determine the final spot on the podium. So right on board with Aaron, looking back at the 56, who I thought was going to work together with him, but at the last second he ducks off to the side. Wow, look at the speed difference they get on the straightaway with the draft. Doherty ran up the inside, but then at the last second braked early so that he doesn't get into Kobayashi. This moves Elson up to third. Kobayashi now fourth. Doherty rides P5.
Doherty nearly spinning out Kobayashi as he was taking way more speed through the turn. This gives the gap now to Alex Cofford, who moved himself in this lap already up from 7th place into 4th place and tries to make it into 3rd place. Into the inside it goes of Steven Elson. Does he make it happen through the Parabolica? He has the momentum, has the shorter line, and sure enough, he creeps away.
Just like that, the HJ Motorsports car pounces. Remember, Cofford is fighting for the Spec 2 win. So not only did he overtake his rival for that Spec 2 lead, but he put cars between himself and them momentarily. That has changed completely. Back on the front stretches, down to the inside, splitting the middle, goes Edward Doherty, who manages to get by both Cofford and Elson. And behind them, we had a big accident. We'll get back to that in a second as they try to settle this out, and I think they've finally got it single file. That was Bradshaw, I believe, who unfortunately lost the car.
Actually, it was a little bit of a side-by-side contact there between the blue and purple car of, I think that's Ferguley and Bradshaw, as they go 3 wide, and then Ferguley drifts ever so slightly to the left side, Bradshaw a little bit to the right side, and their lines cross, and Bradshaw goes away.
Fortunately, the loser in that situation, which moves Bradshaw down to 22nd. Tend to see Adam up for top 10s in this series, despite being a Spec 2 driver, so kind of surprised to see Adam struggling as much as he is. We're starting to get close to the very end of this one. With only 2 minutes left, we switch back to this battle for third, being led by Cofford now there in the yellow and blue machine. Behind him, the black and gold of Steve Elson, then the green and yellow of Edward Doherty, and they're starting to drop Kobayashi, who trails behind in the green and black.
Yeah. Oh!
Who was that? Spun out and in the racing line.
William Marshall there. That was a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, he had just spun out and he unfortunately stopped on the racing line. He really, no matter if he backed up or went forward, he probably would have been pretty well in the way. Couldn't quite see him through the trees there, but well, that shook things up and Kobayashi inherits it.
A very awkward situation for everyone involved, and now we have a lot of awkward cars driving around for the last 8 minutes. No, wait, we're on the last lap, I think. Are we?
We're going to start the last lap just now, I believe. We're going to watch from Doherty's view. Again, he had 2 cars ahead of him, so he couldn't really see very well that there was going to be that car there. And oh, it was a hard hit at the very end of this race. Now, we may have started the last lap. It I was awful close. I didn't get to check to see just as he crossed the line. Guess we'll find out this time around because there's our leader, David Gaspers, with a whopping 10 seconds over Sven Demmel. Gaspers didn't manage to get the win last time around. He's making up for that this time, especially with Halliburton having failed to show up. Oh, did he get a slowdown there? What is he doing? What?
He's out of fuel, yeah. David Gaspers out of fuel.
Well, so they calculated it wrong, because so is Sven Demmel.
Yes,
Demmel is cruising along.
Kobayashi goes past into second place now, and David Gaspers did get help by Shaw.
Gaspers is going again. Checkered flag is out. He must have found something in the tank because David Gaspers has his speed back, and he's going to take the win here at Monza. And Kobayashi does manage to get past Demmel, who short-fueled it. Aaron Kobayashi in his very first race stays second place despite a long pit stop. Maybe that was the right call. And Daniel Sadro finishes in third.
Sven Demmel had to tow his car. He did not make it to the finish line. So very disappointing end for a great run of Sven Demmel.
And a damaged Edward Doherty loses out to Jerry McAreevy right at the end. But Doherty does take your Spec 2 win. That was wild. I wouldn't have thought they'd run out of fuel on a track like this.
Never say never.
Yeah. It's only over once that checkered flag falls as the rest of the cars on the lead lap finish up. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Monza. We saw a fuel race, but we didn't expect to see a fuel race. And in the end, David Gaspers, who baffled us a little bit by slowing down on the last lap. Did have enough to get to the end, and he takes the victory. Aaron Kobayashi, though, comes in and surprises us by playing it safe on fuel, and that paying off in the end with a second place. Daniel Sadro comes home with a third, starting from 17th. Jerry McAreevy, how about this? 14th on the grid, he finishes 4th. And then Edward Doherty wins the Spec 2, but finishes 5th overall despite starting on the pole. Dominique Bureau finishes 2nd in the Spec 2, 6th overall. Jeff Jacobson rounds out the podium in Spec 2, 7th overall. Steve Elson, who unfortunately ran into the back of a car who was spun, and Parabolica settles for 8th, even though he was fighting for that podium. Ryan Walker finishes 9th, and Chris Murakami rounds out your top 10.
My driver of the race, Alex Cofford, he was up in 3rd place, started in 11th, but because of this very awkward incident with 2 laps to go in the Parabolica, only finishes in 11th place. Zachary Levay, he takes 12th place home. Ian Haycox, a very disappointing race for him, from 2nd place all the way down to 13th. Christopher Patterson finishes in 14th. Wayne Palmer takes home 15th. Gary Wilbert 16th. Dustin Decker, the Double D, takes home 17th. Mikko Schuk in 18th. And also the last car on the lead lap, Sven Demmel, running out of fuel, having to tow his car home, only finishes in 19th after Sure plays 2nd place. And Aaron Figele, he finishes all the way down in 20th.
Bob Kern was 21st with Adam Bradshaw 22nd. Then it's Michael Shaw in 23rd. Then you get to the cars. I'm impressed with how many cars we had on the lead lap, honestly. Cars 2 laps down. Julio Forcolin in 24th. John O'Donnell in 25th. And Francois Van Doornveld 26th. Then there's the DNS. William Marshall, Stevie Ray, Todd Hansen, and James McRitchie. I think James was a did not start, though, for this race. We've got our winner ready to talk to us. David Gaspers has joined us, and I guess the first question we want to get out is, David, what happened on the last lap? We saw you slow, and we panicked that you ran out of fuel.
I did.
How did you get to the end, then? What got you there?
I did have enough fuel. In theory, I always do my fuel calculations during the race, and since I had to push overtime, I somehow forgot to add the safety fuel for when the engine will start stuttering. So I had to slow down on the last lap to not risk spinning because of the engine giving out. But yeah, as soon as I stopped the car after the line, the engine was out.
Wow. That's cutting it awful close. The good news for you is that your rival behind you, Sven Demmel, also seems to have ran out of fuel. How was it out there on this track? I had the honor of getting to race against you earlier this week, but this was much different conditions, it seemed.
Very slippery, but other than that, quite similar.
So was traffic much of a hassle out there? There weren't quite as many cars that were lapped as we expected with such a short lap.
No, I think most of the drivers are really close here since it's basically just 4 corners. And in most cases, I got quite lucky and caught the others on the straights, so I profited from it most of it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at Bathurst. You made up for second last round with a win this week, sir.
Yeah.
That was David Gasper's victory here today in Italy. Up next, Stefan is going to be talking to newcomer Aaron Kobayashi.
Yeah.
I thought we were. It looks like he's left us before we could bring him in. So looks like he's going to talk third place, Daniel Sadro.
Yeah, and one more sentence to David. It seemed like that David was faster, too fast for himself, for his own good there, running out of fuel. Daniel Sadro, however, he did not run out of fuel, got past Sven Demmel, who then also had to take the tow, and yeah, pretty much comes home with a, I would say, very lucky but very deserved third place.
Oh, to call it deserved is way too generous. It was incredibly lucky. Really, I had thought my strategy was going to work out well, and then I only found myself within a second after the pit stop of Steve Elson and Ed Doherty, who both just ran incredibly well after their pit stops. And then obviously they were going to get by, and I was just going to let them and kind of figure out where I was going to go. Unfortunately, there was that incident with the lapped car into the parabolica, which basically took a bunch of them out. And then it was just, and then it was lucky for me again when Sven ran out of fuel. So very, very lucky third.
Well, at least you fought very hard for your third place in that massive pack throughout the race. And you also have to be skilled to be lucky. So you can always take that away. But hey, a third place is a third place. And next week we're going to a completely different track. How are you taking on next week's challenge that is Bathurst?
Oh yeah, it's going to be completely different. Not obviously there will be some draft, but not as much. You're going to be able to get away from some drivers, hopefully, through the technical mountain section. So I'm hoping that I will be able to qualify better and then start up front, which will hopefully lead to a good finish out there.
Well, fingers crossed for you for next week, Daniel. And as always, thanks for talking to us.
Well, thanks as always for broadcasting us, and have a good week.
You too, Daniel. Next up, Joe Peak talking to your second place finisher, Aaron Kobayashi.
Yeah, someone
how are you?
Hey, Aaron. Someone apparently got Aaron's handler and brought him back to the interview room. Aaron, you managed to get a second, and if we're not mistaken, is this your first time racing with the Weekend Warriors?
Yeah, I've been racing SRF for a number of years, but this was the first time. Typically, I'm with my kids and my family, but I made a special exception and just got lucky to get a podium today.
A little bit lucky, but it seems like you planned a little bit better on fuel. We noticed you had a very long stop compared to the others. Are you a little bit inexperienced doing pit stops in these cars?
Yeah, guilty as charged. I did the full fuel up just by accident. I actually thought you could just hit the gas and go. I didn't realize that that wouldn't let you release. So I was planning to just follow Sven, and as soon as he left, I was going to leave. Maybe not the best strategy, but that didn't work out for me, but it all turned out in the end, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, you were among that group that suddenly came around Parabolica towards the end of the race and found a stopped car. What was going through your mind, and how did you recover from that?
I was just trying to look which way he was heading and try to go the opposite way, to be honest. At first, I was actually going to head inside, but I seemed to think there was somebody on the inside of me, and it looked clear to the left, so I went that way and got lucky, I think. That was a big heart-stopping moment for me, certainly.
So next week we go to Bathurst. Do you plan to be back, and do you think you'll fare as well at a drastically different track?
I have some experience at that track and really enjoy it, although, the downhill part is always a bit scary. We'll just have to see how it turns out. I'd like to join. I've been wanting to join for, a number of years, to be honest, but usually family's first, and so I always do family first. What can I say?
That sounds like a noble reason to miss a race, honestly. Well, congratulations on second place. It was a well-earned podium for your first time out here in Weekend Warriors.
Thank you, and it was great to see all of the old SRF gang and some new ones, and hope to see you guys on track. Have a good one.
See Aaron back as well next week in Australia. Well, we got one more to talk to. That is our Spec 2 winner. Steph's going to talk to Ed Doherty.
Yeah, and Ed, you were also part of that very big battle group there at the very end when you came around to a stopped car right in front of you. What was going through your mind when that happened?
Looks like Ed's got to get his microphone settled out here for a second. We'll give him a moment to try and unmute himself as we get him mic'd up. Looks like Ed, unfortunately, is not going to be able to talk to us today. So that's a bit of a shame because after his pole position, that was an impressive run from Mr. Doherty, especially to finish where he did overall. So I believe that is going to be it for today. We're going to close up and thank our sponsor, Sim Stickers. Again, if you want to see if they've got anything that could help you with your button box, check them out at simstickers.co.uk. And by the way, they also do stuff for keyboards, so you don't necessarily need a button box to see if they could help you. Also, thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe to their channel. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page and click the red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts. They're listed here on your screen. And additional thanks goes to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media, on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. After 2 incredibly short tracks, we're going to one of the longest on iRacing, Bathurst. That'll be Sunday, June 30th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.